Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the Unsung Hero Award, Gibraltar Rugby's Tom Tunbridge.
If I would have to describe Tom in one word, it would certainly be passionate.
The respect that the Gibraltar rugby community has for Tom is immense.
He's always there, he's always coaching. If there is a group that doesn't have any coach for whatever reason, and then he steps in.
So Tom's dedication to rugby is unfounded. It's incredible.
And if he says he's going to do something, he will usually, drop everything to make sure that that gets done.
Try and get your hands up. Yeah. Try and get your hands up so you catch and pass in one go. Catch and pass in one movement. Catch and pass in one movement. Catch and pass in one movement.
So when it comes to rugby and some of the other sports where he even helps out, like basketball, he's busy every single day of the week with coaching, ladies, children, under 18s when it comes to basketball. He's done that as well in the rugby, so he gives everything he's got. He doesn't just turn up, he actually makes good use of his time.
He's the kind of guy that when he's passionate about something, he puts his all into it, and he will try and move heaven and earth to achieve that. And yeah, that's certainly Tom. He's an extremely passionate coach.
Rugby is a sport that becomes a culture. Rugby means a lot more than just the minutes on the pitch, or it means even more than the minutes you spend training and coaching. It really is about friendship, it's about inclusion. Rugby is a game that was created where there are so many different jobs to do on a pitch that it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, how fast you are, or what you are, no matter what your shape or size, there's a place for you. And because there's a place for you on a rugby pitch, it becomes very inclusive. And that inclusivity brings a lot of friendships. People you make friends in rugby become friends for life, even if you've met them once. Whereas in other sports like I've played, that doesn't really happen as much. But rugby is something where your friends will stay forever because you battle on the pitch together, you get hurt together. Sometimes you hurt other people when you tackle nice and hard, but you do get hurt sometimes. And that sticks with you forever, and that's the culture that I love about rugby.
Tom Tunbridge is a key figure in Gibraltar rugby, widely recognised for being instrumental in developing the sport at grassroots level. Through decades of voluntary coaching, he has played a major role in introducing and expanding youth rugby on the Rock, including founding mini-rugby programmes and helping build structured pathways for young players. His work has significantly increased participation, nurtured talent across multiple age groups, and strengthened the overall rugby community, all while promoting the core values of teamwork, discipline, and enjoyment of the game.
Tom had the great passion in getting kids involved, and thank goodness he did, because those kids are our future. And through the dark days where the only allocations we could get was in DTC, we were grateful for the allocation. But the security measures, parents having to register, and if a parent wasn't there, then the child wouldn't be allowed. And Tom almost single-handedly got a group of volunteers and carried that youth section and kept it alive.
When he retired, he sort of took a bit of a step back from playing, and actually took a bit of a step back from rugby for a season or two. And then we were speaking, it must have been around 2008-9 time, and he came up with the idea of starting a mini section. And so Tom, around that period, started a mini rugby section. I believe it was Sunday mornings at the archery range at the time. And there he was without fail every Sunday coaching kids from the age of 4, 5, 6. And that really was the catalyst for what then became our mini and youth, and then became our mini juniors and youth. And we've now got a few hundred children practicing rugby every weekend that all started from Tom and his initial 5, 6 players, friends of his son Jack, that were all going down there and wanted to play rugby.
My son was about 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, and he was playing tots rugby. That somebody was running tots rugby for very young children here in Gibraltar, and he would go to that. But then when he got to 5, he wasn't allowed to do it anymore. And there was some youth rugby already been playing in Gibraltar. I'm not going to take credit for there being youth rugby, because there was some youth rugby in Gibraltar already. But it was for older kids, and there was nothing in between the 5-year-old and roughly the 15-year-old. And I didn't want my son to miss out on the experiences I'd had. So I looked around and said, well, doesn't matter, I'll start it. And nothing existed, there was nobody. And I'll remember the first ever occasion was the 10th of November 2010, I think it was, on a very cold November day in Devil's Tower Camp with my son and my daughter, my 3 nephews and my niece. And that was it. That was all the people that came. And from there, it's just grown and grown year after year after year. And every year we've gone bit more, and always trying to bring in the next age group, always trying to bring in the next thing, do some local competition, take them to Spain, take them on tour, and to try and give people experiences and grow the sport in Gibraltar until we are where we are today, where we have kids from as young as 2 years old, all the way to veterans like myself, though I don't play anymore, but all the way up to people in their 60s still playing rugby, and we have the whole spectrum of every single age group, and the women's game as well.
And he's done this now for nearly, I would say, 20 years. And what you have to realise is it's not just in Gibraltar that we practice rugby or play rugby. And as Tom experienced, and a number of us have, is that you play rugby in Andalusia as well. So he, for 10 years, has travelled all the way around Andalusia, given up his weekends to coach and take children from Gibraltar to give them a rugby experience, and he's been a catalyst for our mini and youth section.
He was instrumental in getting us to play little tournaments in Spain where we could test ourselves against other opposition, and from that we obviously learned that we were not that good, or sometimes some year that we are pretty good. So you take the pros and the cons. And behind the scene, it was a lot of work to make that happen. And that is not seen always, or not appreciated always by the parents and by the kids, but a lot of work goes through that. And now other sections, other coaches are following in his footsteps. So he's been instrumental into making that happen.
I've been playing rugby since I was about 8 or 9 years old. I was born in Gibraltar, parents are born in Gibraltar, my grandparents are born in Gibraltar, but when the frontier closed, my parents moved over to the UK. So I grew up until I was 14 in England, and in England I used to play rugby from about the age of 9, and haven't stopped doing it ever since, whether playing or coaching. We used to play in school back then, so you always wanted to make the school team. So making the school team, it was like, hey, I'm somebody now. So whether it was rugby itself, but I played all sports until I was about 15 here in Gib. I played football, I ran with athletics with the Ludeans, I played rugby, I played basketball, did all those sports at the same time. So rugby's always been there, but for me it's always been about sport in general as well.
Must have been about 30 odd years ago when I was still playing, and a young Tunbridge turned up. He wanted to follow in his brother's footsteps, and he was this wildly enthusiastic kid who turned up and says, right, who can I tackle, who can I hit, who do I pass the ball to? An enthusiasm we got brought to the pitch, and all the older players were thinking, what's this youngster up to? But the brilliant thing about Tom is that he's maintained that enthusiasm all the way through his career. When we were playing in Spain, then when we started the Super Fours, and he was a team member there. And then the one thing that Gibraltar Rugby will be eternally grateful to Tom, same as Chad Thompson had the idea of growing us into a union and getting into Rugby Europe, Tom had the great passion in getting kids involved. And thank goodness he did, because those kids are our future. And now we've got 4 or 5 of those youngsters playing for the national team.
special day for Team Rugby. Great win, and it's going to be celebrated tonight, that's for sure.
Since Gibraltar Rugby made it into Rugby Europe, that has become like a really exciting thing for everybody, I suppose, involved, but for Tom especially. And he's really starting to dedicate his time to developing the women's rugby. So that is something that he's really focusing his attention on. It's had its ups and downs. So I think it's somewhere where he can make himself really useful. And I think ultimately that's what he wants to be to rugby, useful and helping them develop areas where maybe are a bit lacking at the moment.
I've just taken over as the coach of the ladies. We train twice a week, and they've been going for about 5 or 6 years, but we're always encouraging new players because it is a sport where a lot of people think, oh, I can't do rugby, it's too dangerous, I'm going to get hurt. Not true. I'm not going to say you can't get hurt, but with proper coaching and proper training, you don't know how strong you can be. People think, oh, I could never do that. Anyone can do it. You just need to come down, be brave enough, find your inner warrior, and take part. And we're always looking for new players, and people should just come down and give it a go. And you'll be coached, so it is safe and you won't get hurt.
Tom has inspired others by giving them confidence when it comes to the game. He's very good at developing something that he sees in anyone. And no matter what size, age, gender you are, that is what he ultimately wants to do, make them feel good about themselves and develop them, not just the rugby side of things, but also them as a person.
He's sort of one of the few that have actually gone all the way from 5-year-olds all the way through to under 18s, and he's always there on the field. He's you know, he's a fountain of knowledge when it comes to rugby. He's got a certain style of coaching, and he's delivered results. You know, we've got a number of the players that started all those years ago now playing for the Gibraltar national team, and they've come through this pathway that you know, Tom has primarily been responsible for.
And now is the next stage of our development of actually playing official international matches. That spectrum of going from a handful of people who just had enjoyed a bit of rugby on the weekend to now an entire organisation driving kids from as young as 2 all the way to become internationals to represent their country. That growth has been exponential, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, and having Europa Point Stadium was a big part of that. My drive in rugby, and even in basketball and every sport I've ever coached, has always been the desire to see somebody do better. I never care if one person turns up to training or 20 turn up to training. I really couldn't care less. The idea of I can't do a session if there's not many players there doesn't exist to me. If one player turns up and they want to improve and they think I can help them, I will help them improve with whatever's in my ability to do so. And that idea of just wanting to see people improve is what drives me to come down to training every day. And those challenges just keep me coming back because I love a challenge.